So we're here in the Mercedes Jet class, courtesy of A2B taxi cabs. Delighted to say I'm joined by former Cambridge United skipper Ian Miller. How are you doing, Ian?
Yeah, good. Yeah, good to be here. This is a very impressive vehicle.
Yeah, no, it's always a pleasure in the Jet class. It's pretty popular. So going to just have a quick chat about your time at Cambridge United a few years ago now, but you were at Grimsby Town, Ian, and it was Richard Money that signed you across to the U's. How did that move sort of establish itself?
Well, I've always, since I was at college in Bury St Edmunds, I was speaking to Jez regularly, and he would always kind of be interested in where my career was taking me, and he kind of tried to sign me on a number of occasions, and it kind of never felt and fell right in time of my career, and I was getting to a point where Grimsby wasn't kind of the best place in the world, and I'm a bit of a home guy, so it was perfect. It was the perfect transition for me, and I've known Jez years, and that kind of bond and that kind of appreciation to pick up a phone and ask how you're getting on kind of meant a lot. So for me, I thought, well, if he's going to do that throughout my career, then it kind of tells me what the club was about.
And given the success you had with Cambridge United and the promotion, was that something when you signed that you anticipated? Did it give you a good feel around the club when you joined that there was possibly a promotion, having been out of the league for so many years, to get back into the Football League?
I think it was always the goal, and I saw the kind of squad that he was assembling at the time, and kind of he was bringing in players that there were no superstars in that team, and I think we all knew our individual jobs, and everyone was willing to work hard, and the way that Richard Money set us up, and we were just going to be hard to beat, and then let the kind of the players play and let the defenders defend, and we knew that we had a midfield that would run over top of any other midfield, and we knew that we'd score goals. So we had that kind of combination and formula that was destined to be successful.
Excellent, yeah, and what a successful season it was under, as you said, Richard Money. Just give us a little insight into Richard Money. He came across as sometimes a little bit of an abrasive, prickly character. He once famously said, I think Cambridge had won 1-0 at home, are you not entertained, as the saying goes. What was Richard like to be under his tutelage and be led by him?
Yeah, so for me personally, like he was absolutely spot on with me. I know that, and exactly what you've said was how some of the boys found him. If you weren't in the squad, well, to that point, or in the team, to that point, you weren't really much used to him, and he would focus on his 11 that he was going to be dealing with. He would sit with his deck chair and watch training and point around because he wasn't the most mobile. But I think when you have the career that he had, he must have picked up knowledge and experience. And there was times in games when we would play away at Tamworth on a Tuesday night that he would switch formation and shape and personnel, and it would pay off. He kind of knew how to win games, and not necessarily in a pretty manner, like it didn't need to be. And I think that's where that comment came from. Like he would always say, like, oh, we're not here to necessarily, play unbelievable football, because you can play unbelievable football and get beat. He was there to roll our sleeves up and dig our way out of the league, because it's a horrible league to play in. Like, it's just treacherous, and some of the places that you go and teams you play against, it wasn't like, how many passes can we make? It was let's gonna roll up our sleeves and see who's gonna win the battle.
Yeah, exactly. It was that, and we kind of ground it out. We had a running battle with Luton Town. I think we had quite a good, healthy lead on them, but they reeled us back in. How did the squad sort of deal with that, the pressure as it got to the latter end of the season? As I say, Luton collared us, and obviously one only go up, in that division, which makes it incredibly tough. We'd been out of the league for 9 years. We'd hit the post twice at Wembley. How did the squad feel when it got to the nitty gritty? And I remember we weren't in great form towards the end of the season.
We literally were in the worst form going into those like playoff games. No one wanted to play Halifax because they were the form team. But I think when you look at those final few games, Luton obviously had a massive fan base. Financially, they were way more back than what we were. But I think we obviously beat them in the trophy run up, which I think gave us that little bit of an edge. And I think we just kind of knew that we weren't going to turn into a bad team overnight. We had a couple of bad runs. Maybe we was a little bit distracted by kind of the trophy final, and then there was quite a gap between trophy final and playoff final. But once we kind of got drawn against Gateshead after beating Halifax, I think that Halifax games and the way players that weren't in and around the first 11, like Delano's, like I think it just kind of galvanised us, and there was at no point when I was kind of looking across the line as we stood there singing the national anthem. There was no point that I thought we was going to lose. I just knew that, we had the individual players to win the game.
Excellent. So yeah, that's it. Will give us an insight into what the squad was like, what your sort of process. You were obviously captain. Was there nerves building up? It's obviously National Stadium. You've got one foot back into the Football League, but you need to bring that other foot in and make sure you do it. Cambridge are a Football League club, should be in the Football League, and it contributed to where we are now. So it was a huge occasion. So there must have been a little bit of nerves in and around yourself and the squad.
Yeah, and I think it was different to the trophy final because we were playing a lesser opposition, and it is when you play them 46 games and then to not get promoted and be so close, it would have been gutting. It really would have been. So everyone was nervous, but it's always that old adage that once you're on the pitch and have the first touch of the ball, like you kind of just fall back into default mode of what we did in training, how we wanted us to set up. Obviously, we changed our shape mid-game because of. We wanted to go with a 3, and that didn't really work. And Richard obviously knew Gateshead really well. But when you look across the squad of your Ryan Donaldsons and players like that, I just think they had that touch of class. Like that free kick, I was right behind the back of it, and I was so glad that Hughesy stepped away from it. He scored one where he shanked it in the top corner at Tamworth. But other than that, like Donaldson was the sort of player that you wouldn't see him for 70 minutes and then he'd just bring out the class. And Bez was the same. And I think when I look back at our performances leading up to that and the season as a whole, and just think as a squad we were brilliant. And it was probably where maybe as we went into League Two, maybe that's where we kind of went, well, now we're in League Two, let's get other players in from higher leagues because that's going to make us a better player. And maybe that was the downfall. Maybe if it had kept that squad together and maybe added a sprinkling of other players, would have been a bit more successful quicker in League Two. Whereas I think we struggled to start with because it was, let's get some players from the Championship teams on loan or X, Y and Z. And all of a sudden then you get the egos in the dressing room, and players aren't stupid. The dressing room is the power of the football club, and when it comes to someone that comes in who thinks they're better than what we've bust our balls for, then they soon get found out. But unbelievable scenes, and I'm so glad for the club and for all the supporters because you go back to Dave Doggett and people like that would work every single hour to see this football club be successful, and thankfully it was.
Absolutely, and I say you guys back then in 2014, made a huge contribution to where we are as a club now, because that was the sort of breaking point, getting back into the league and then going from there. But just going back to that final, Ian, obviously you had the sort of catastrophic injury with a ruptured Achilles. I think we'd made all of our substitutions, so we were it was all hands to the pump on a massive pitch at Wembley. Yeah. That must have been heartbreaking for you, knowing you'd done it straight away, and then probably double fold that the team were going to be without you and down to 10 for that remaining what seemed like 24 hours.
Yeah, and it's exactly that. Every fan that I speak to was like, that's the longest 10 minutes in their football supporter's career. And I didn't actually know straight away what I'd done. And I remember the doc and the physio coming on and was like, "Oh no, that's it done." And I was like, "Oh no, like I want to carry on," because I wasn't actually in any pain. Obviously, I got a bit of stick from the Gateshead fans. It was right in front of their fans. I'd played for Darlington previously, who was their kind of rival. So I think they just thought that I was trying to be a bit cute and run the clock down. And then I was carried under the ground. And I didn't actually know until the game had finished what the result was, and someone come through and went, "Oh, it stayed 2-1, but you've got to stay here because you've snapped your Achilles." And I was a bit like, "No, we've just got promoted. Like, I've got promotion on my CV. I want to go and celebrate with the team." Hence when they found that awful wheelchair and wheeled me out. And and when I look back, I wouldn't have changed anything. Obviously, it was probably the start of the end of my career in terms of that injury. I was early to mid 30s, and to then snap my Achilles, I was told I probably had a 7% chance of making a comeback, But being a footballer is what I always wanted to be. What I'd worked from a young lad to be a footballer. Kind of still now, I still play football now, and I've got 3 boys who I love kicking the ball around with, and I would have done anything to get back into the team. Which I was thankful for the people around me, but I managed to get back to it.
Excellent stuff. So you said you still play now, Ian. So you play for Needham Market, I believe, but you're still playing sort of semi-pro or anything now?
Yeah, so still chasing around after it, and kind of I'm playing up against kids now that are half my age. I'm 40 next year, but until my body says like stop, then I'm going to keep going, because it's a long time once you are retired, and I'll just move from the pitch into the dugout. That's the plan, hopefully. So I can't see, my wife's not going to get her weekends back. Like, I'm not going to all of a sudden not watch football and be around it. So yeah, that's the transition. And it's funny because the game is about them transitions. I was just speaking to Greg there about that whole playing full-time football, and then what you do after that, and then once you stop playing football as a complete, like what you do after that. So yeah, like football's given me so much in my life, and so many happy memories. Like some of the best memories in my life have been, playing with, lads that I've either known for 6 months or 6 years. So I want to keep doing it.
Excellent stuff. So obviously the club, Cambridge United, in a good position now, firmly established herself as a League One club, doing good things under Bonds. Do you still get back when you can, and you must sort of sit back, and obviously you say you guys played a part in getting us back into the league, so is it nice to see the club doing so well and where they're at the moment and getting healthy crowds and good results against some massive football teams?
Yeah, and I think it was so nice to see Bonds get that appointment. Some people, I remember from the get-go, were like, it's an easy appointment, we've been appointed from within, it's a cheap option. But those people don't know what Bonds has done for the club. Like he's Cambridge through and through, and I think he would only ever have Cambridge's best interests at heart. And I think he's proven so many people wrong in the success he's having. And speaking from the boys individually, like they're saying how much more enjoyable it is, how much they're improving under Bonds, and that's someone that's come from like the bottom of the ladder to now like top of the tree at Cambridge United, and now the fans start to realise that he's bringing all of that to the table. That's not a fluke. It's not happened from other people. That's that's from Mark Bonner, and I'm over the moon. And I love getting back to the Abbey, especially games under floodlights. I love bringing my boys to watch games of football. Because the Abbey's such a nice place to bring my family. And like you've said, to be competing against some of those big hitters, like it must be brilliant for the boys playing, for Bonds as well. We've gone from Eastleigh away on a cold Tuesday night to Sunderland Stadium Alight away on a Saturday in front of 20,000 people, and that's what the beautiful game is about. And that could be taken away and they could get relegated, but I just think the heart of the club, it's in such a good position right now.
Great, well summed up, Ian. Yeah, it's good time, and say it's a good time to be a Cambridge United supporter again. As you say, we rode them rough times, we got through it, and we're enjoying the good times now. If you could give a message to the supporters that supported you, back then in that 2014 promotion-winning season, what would you sort of say to the supporters, for backing you, and say it was a joint effort, wasn't it?
Yeah, I don't think fans realise the part that they play, and whether that's positive or negative. And I understand that people pay their money and deserve their say. But that game against Halifax, there is no way that we would have made the final if it weren't for the fans. And it's funny that we played Halifax first game of the season on TV, and the Abbey was jumping, and it kind of carried us through the season. And it's always nice to kind of, before you come out of that tunnel, to hear the fans. I know for a fact that other players don't like coming to the Abbey because it's not a massive stadium with a nice comfortable dressing room. Like, we make it a little bit rough and ready for them, and it'll be exactly the same now. But yeah, I think the Cambridge is always the first result that I'll look for, and the fans will always play a special part in my journey as a Cambridge player.
Excellent, Ian. Well, thanks so much for your time, Ian Miller. It's been an absolute pleasure looking back at your time at Cambridge United. Still, remembered fondly, and great to have you along today, and all the very best for the future, mate.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Thank you.